Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. I hope you had a nice week so far. If this is the first time you're listening, this is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation, and what a great place it is. What a great community we've got. Since this podcast started, it's blown me away by how many messages we receive and feedback we receive and ratings on iTunes and all the rest of it, but just not just kind of a like and a thanks. You know, it's deep, meaningful replies and testimonials of how this is actually tangibly changed or shifted the trajectory of people's financial destiny, which is really incredible. And it's why I'm going to continue to do this thing until my adenoids give up and I completely lose my sinuses. But I just want to say thanks. If you're an avid listener, thank you. And if you're a new listener, thanks for being here. I hope you've got a lot of value from it. So today, we obviously over the last 2 years, if you guys have been listening, a lot of the messaging has been around financial freedom. That is what the podcast is about. And over the last 6 months or so, some of the episodes have included my views and opinions and insights really on how freedom, a lot of financial freedom is made up from just the feeling of being free, and how that isn't necessarily tied financially. It's about being mobile, flexible, nimble, spaceless, being able to make a living or cover your lifestyle costs from anywhere in the world. And obviously over the last year, just over a year, we've seen this pandemic and we've seen lots of business. The whole business landscape's been uprooted and changed. The dynamics have changed. The deliveries changed. The products have changed. The way we meet has changed. And obviously we've been running online businesses for many years now. And this is what I've kind of been teaching people to do or kind of encouraging people to do in their own business. And you've probably listened to the episodes on touch points on your business, moving them online, sales, distribution, delivery, rapport, all that kind of stuff should be instantaneous. So there has been a huge shift to online business. Now, one of the things that I've witnessed, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, is the struggle of that transition. The transition between being in person and running an event to taking that same feel and look and brand and tone of voice and moving that online without it seeming like another bloody Zoom call, because that is what everyone's sick of. So we've got a real treat this episode this week, because I've got a great friend of mine and also one of our partners who has been behind some of the productions of our live online events. So we've run global trading events, the Trader Vault. I've run boot camps, 3-day boot camps, and I've run my show, and we do multiple events online. And the production of that stuff, a lot of behind the scenes of that stuff is thanks to a lovely lady called Lorna Reeves. So Lorna's here today. Welcome, Lorna.
Hi, it's been a long time since someone's called me a lady, but thanks.
Yeah, same. No, but we've got Lorna here, and Lorna runs a company called My Oh My Events, and she specializes in events first and foremost. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more, but what I love about Lorna is the fact that she's really zoned in on the pain points of moving a business from offline or offline to online and keeping that tone of voice, keeping the brand, the messaging, and really allowing the people who are running the events to focus on what they do best whilst the technology is all taken care of. So look, if you are a person who's looking to start a business or transition your business or level up your game, then you definitely want to listen to this episode, because we're going to share some amazing insights and tips for you guys, so that by the end of this episode, the goal is that you can walk away and level up. You can level up straight away, which is the goal for every one of these episodes. So first and foremost, Lorna, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Oh, crikey, where to start? So I guess first thing to say is that My Events is a reasonably new business, and it has grown exponentially in the last couple of years, obviously helped massively by COVID. We were fortunate enough to be one of the businesses that have really flown during the pandemic, and then afterwards. My background was as a wedding planner, and my events kind of grew organically as a couple of friends and mentors said, hey, you organised stuff for people, can you do a couple of our conferences and workshops? And we really tried to take the ethos of the experience of a wedding, 'cause it's not just about two people standing up and saying some legal words, which ultimately it is. It's really about the whole day, the experience.
The feeling, right?
Exactly. It's got to connect to the heart. And then taking that into the event space. So just because it's a business event doesn't mean you exclude the heart and all of the other emotions and senses that go along with it. And actually, we started a campaign that was hashtag no more boring conference rooms.
Yeah.
And we've obviously had to adjust that a little bit. And now we're at hashtag no more boring webinars. And it's really about how you have huge impact on people's lives by doing events differently, by standing out from the crowd, by making your virtual event, whether it's a 90-minute seminar or a 4-day conference, really making it connect with all of people's senses, so that they walk away and remember you long term, and it's making that connection permanent. And that's what we do for people.
Amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, conferences, right? Meetings are renowned for being boring. They're not efficiently run. That's a whole nother topic, but I love the way that you've kind of really honed in on the feeling of an event. Because as I've said before many times, lots of businesses think about the product and the price point and the thing and, the upsell maybe, and that's it, the customer service, maybe a little bit. But really, what makes a business really remarkable is the feeling of being involved, and that's invisible. So the reason a lot of business owners don't think about it is because it's the stuff you take for granted that matters, and that is the things that you should pay attention to when building a business, and accept that no one's ever going to even realize that that's happening, but it's there, and it's there, and that's why they love you. This is such a glazed over thing. And I've given the example of a coffee shop before, where we spoke about, you go in your coffee shop, you don't really know why it's better than the other coffee shop until you go in the other coffee shop and the door's slamming because there's a breeze and the windows are all steamed up and it's sweaty and the music's too loud and all the rest of it. If you just focus on solving those tiny things, the customer don't realize that you've done that, but it makes it a much more enjoyable feeling because of the senses and your feeling and experience inside that shop. So that's what I love about this, because as we've gone into the world of online meetings and conferences and Zoom and Skype and all the rest of it, everything's gone from having their kind of edge and having their kind of USP to looking the same, and everything's on Zoom. So it's important that you stand out and maintain that kind of feeling that you were getting at your events. And if you're starting a business, it's important that you stand out, because you're just another Zoom call, right? So it's important that we go into that. I think we get that. But what is the problems that people are facing? Because you've obviously had people approach you over the last year or so, specifically to move online. What are the problems? I mean, tech's got to be a big one, right? So
tech is huge. We've all got a laptop or some sort of device that connects to the internet, and if you've got that, you can run an event. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should run an online event. You've got to think about the technology that's supporting you, stability of your Wi-Fi, the cameras that you're using, the mics that you're using, because every little one of those will add to quality.
Yeah.
Tech is absolutely huge when it comes to that. I often get people will come to me and say, I've launched this webinar, but I'm not getting people involved in it. So they're not getting bums on seats. So I'm just not going to do it anymore. Well, that's part of marketing, that's part of your niche, and you're not standing out from the crowd. You're just yet another drop in a massive ocean of online stuff.
Yeah. And where like, and what we mean by like standing out is really like, 10 years ago, there was a few big YouTubers. Now there's millions of them. And now you're expected to have 4K quality, you're expected to have 1080p on your video. And if you don't, well, that looks budget. And you're expected this. And everything is becoming more and more normal. All of the innovations and the expectations in history or previously are now the expectation just as an entry level. So it's really important that you ride this wave, because as we move more and more into the online space, if you're not doing this kind of thing and you're not standing out online, you're going to become even more lost in a noisy marketplace. Whether you're in a business or you're a personal brand or you're thinking about starting a business, it's really worth putting some consideration into this. And that leads on to the other problem, which I think would be the content, the actual content. What can't I do on Zoom? I think there's limitations in people's minds of what I'm going online, so I can't click the thing on the projector anymore. I can't hand out a workbook anymore. I can't have tables anymore. What's the thought on that? Like,
everything is possible.
Right.
Absolutely everything is possible. The first thing I get my clients to do when they come to me and say, this is what we used to deliver face-to-face, we just want to do that, but virtual. I absolutely say, stop. You cannot transition face-to-face stuff into a virtual space. It doesn't work. It doesn't resonate with people. You just lose something in the translation. You need to take the nuggets of the content and rework them for the virtual space.
Yeah.
You need to shift and change, and everything is possible. You can do group work. You can do interactive stuff. You can bring all the bells and whistles. You just need to do it or learn to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
Or get someone for you that will do it.
So give us an example then, because what I find when you say anything's possible, like that, I had a smart tech company come around my house when I lived in my old house, and they came around. I was willing to spend like 20 grand or whatever, 30 grand on this system. And they sat down and they said, well, if you can think it, we can do it. And that just made me not do it, because I'm like, well, I don't know what I don't know. I need some guidance. So it resulted in me actually just not employing them. I didn't even get it done in the end, because I'm just, I'm never going to, if they're putting it on me instead of coming up with some packages and going, here's some ideas, I'm not going to do it. And I think a lot of people wouldn't do it. So people might be restricted or limited in their consciousness of what the possibilities are. So for instance, let's take a normal boot camp, because you've done physical boot camps for me and you've done online boot camps. A boot camp, so we've got tables, right? So we've got workbooks and tables, and we've got a projector screen. How might that play out or convert online? How is that possible?
So firstly, you can definitely, I know you like to do your intro videos, you like to have music, you like to shift what's going on the stage. And if you think of your stage as your screen, your camera, what you're showing to the world, you can employ all of those. Whether it's Zoom, whether it's WebEx, whether it's Microsoft Teams, you can play media through all of those. So just by putting together an animated slide pack and running some ambience music across the top of that when people land, you're already leveling up. You're already doing something different. You can bring people into breakout rooms, send them away into small groups and get them working in groups. It starts to generate that engagement and that immersion in your event, and starts to build community, which is also aspects you want for your business. You can start setting up individual chat rooms, so you can get people commenting on various things. You can bring in plugins. There's so many plugins that are available to put into Zoom, put into Teams, and in June there's going to be a mass release across Zoom where they actually have inbuilt apps, so you don't have to go to external sites anymore. You'll be able to just click and add them to your Zoom account.
Great.
Kind of like plug and plays.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to do like community whiteboards. You'll be able to get people to work together like you would on a flip chart. Take this bit of paper and come up with all your best ideas. You can do that in the virtual space. And you have to bring those skills to get people immersed, to get them involved, to get them engaged in order for your kind of knowledge legacy to live on outside of that room.
Yeah. And I've seen this firsthand, and we actually executed this just recently in the Trader Vault, which was a global event. Not only did we have people from something like 115 different countries, we had something like we had 10 speakers, and they were all like from different countries, and it was incredible. And to see that just executed flawlessly and seamlessly, and bring that event online without any kind of, I don't know, it still had an exclusive feeling to it. It still had the kind of hype. People were hyped. To see that happen is remarkable. But having said that, there sounds like a lot of spinning plates, right? So if you're in an in-person event, there can arguably be less to go wrong than there can online, because you've got less you can control, right? You can always swap out a pen, and you can always change an HDMI lead. But online, if you're trying to do all that yourself and produce the content and be the stage speaker, that must be a nightmare. What have you seen people? What are some of their kind of horror stories?
Yeah. So, and they change. Gosh, I've seen some things. So in the real life world, once people are in the room, that's pretty much it. You just can concentrate on delivering because all your setup is done. The difference with virtual is you're constantly monitoring that you're live. If you're in a face-to-face and your mic drops out, you chuck the mic and speak a bit louder. If you're in a virtual space and your Wi-Fi drops out, you're screwed.
You're gone.
Yeah,
You're frozen.
Yeah, you're done. Your whole room collapses. That's the worst case. Is you've got 100 people there to listen, and your Zoom room folds, and then you will never get that 100 people back. It's done. You might get a couple of, maybe 20 of those people will come back in on the link, but you're pretty much, that's your event over.
Yeah, right.
And it's really hard to regain that trust, regain that reputation back, because it's done. It's over. Obviously, you've got the risks of things like Zoom bombing. It's less so now, but it's still very much a thing. Once you put a Zoom link out to your attendees, there's not very much that stops that link from being reshared.
Shared, yeah.
You've got to have someone that controls who's landing in the room. That's the only way to stop that from happening. And it still happens. I was on one the other week as an attendee. Someone landed in the room, started playing really obnoxious rap music, and was like mooning at the camera.
Right.
And you're relying on someone to be able to catch that, switch it off and kick them out before they can do anything worse than what they were doing.
Wow.
Mildly funny, but not really what you want.
No, not what you want in an event, no.
And then the biggest thing that happens is we just get speakers who just can't keep a train of thought. So if you can imagine patting your head and rubbing your tummy and trying to talk at the same time. So that's you making sure you're online, making sure you're recorded, running your slides, running your media, then your weight room, bringing people in.
Engaging in chat.
Trying to engage
Q&A.
in the chat. Somebody's audio's not working. Somebody in Taiwan wants the translation. Is the recording available afterwards? All of that is happening. And you're trying to be dazzling on the screen at the same time and deliver this magnificent content. It just doesn't happen. The speaker appears like they're distracted, like they're not focusing, and you get that
Sweating.
constant,
Yeah.
peeing and sweat from their foreheads, and they're not engaged. They're not really looking down that camera and speaking to you because their eyes are all over the place trying to catch everything that's going wrong.
And because this is new, that's new to them as well. That's not helping because they're just like...
You've not yet got the muscle memory. You've not got...
It's not second nature.
No, you've not got that, I know where all those buttons are. And that can be really distracting. Plus, it's really hard to use that as content going forward. Would you want to put out a recording of you being a bit shit, just not delivering at your best, just being distracted, you're not really hammering home your message when you're thinking of 100 other things. So what could have been an awesome piece of content that you then put on your YouTube channel, you make into a podcast, you make into a blog, actually it's just an hour's worth of rubbish.
Exactly. So, which are some of the massive benefits as well? Like, so what are this isn't like doom and gloom. This is like just giving you guys insights into something to be aware of if you're moving into this space. But I can promise you, I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been doing it for years like this, and nothing's changed this end. You know, COVID, not COVID. I've been doing this like this. I've been doing this delivery for many, many years with great success. So what are the benefits of doing this? You know, what are the benefits of running your events online? Obviously, mobility, right? And freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, providing you've got stable Wi-Fi, which speak to pretty much any hotel in the world, and they'll let you plug into their hard router for a fee. You can do this from anywhere. You don't have to be in the UK, so you become timeless and spaceless. You can record this, and it then becomes part of a program or just part of material that you send out in the future. You can connect to everyone in the world. There's not that, well, we're not going to send the person on that course because actually it's going to cost the company to get you there in the overnights. You don't get any of that. You save all of that cash because you can engage people in their own homes. You've got the opportunity to spread your small business globally. You know, I'm serving clients in Canada, in America, in Australia. They stream to me. I run their events for them. To a global audience. There's no bigger opportunity than right now to reach the global market.
That's an interesting point. And on pricing, I want to say two things. One on pricing, which is, you know, if you was going to charge £500 for the event in an in-person thing, and now it's online, you know, you don't want to then drop it to 20 quid, 50 quid, you know, because one, you could allocate some funds to leveling up and, you know, employing someone like Lorna to run your events and make it extra special, you know, world class. But two, you can add more profit to your, you know, more bottom line to your business. And as long as I always say, give more in use value than you charge in cash value, and then the fair exchange is there. They're going to recommend you, you know, as long as you over deliver on the content, which is really hard to do if you're trying to figure out all the buttons and the sound and all the rest of it. Like, you can't do that. You can't over deliver. So it's really important that you do have a method or a system in place that allows you to streamline this process. I can't stress it enough. And the second thing I want to say, you mentioned mobility. You can get wireless routers. Like, we've just invested, you can get a Netgear M1, which is a 4G router. We've just invested in the M5, which is a 5G router. So like 81 countries of 5G, you know, or 81 locations. That's incredible. There's really no excuse for us to not be able to stream. That's a 10 kilobit upstream, which is amazing. So obviously there's the mobility benefits. The other benefits is you can be anywhere. So Lorna just mentioned that people don't have to fly in, but you don't have to fly out. So you can be in multiple countries at once. And it kind of broadens your message. It invites more and more people who can't attend your event. Like we did the Trader Vault. There was loads of people that couldn't come because it was in Amsterdam. And then we moved it online. All of a sudden we open it out to not only US attendees and things like that, but US speakers who weren't able to make it to Amsterdam. So you can level up your events by getting more speakers.
And that's a really good point, actually. Speakers and the clients I've worked with have said often, you know, I'd really like to go for that top speaker to really get the tickets in. And they wouldn't ever go for it before because they're in the UK and the speakers in the US. And now I'm saying, pitch them. Yeah. Pitch them and tell them what's in it for them. They're not got to move from their pajamas.
Much more likely to say yes, because obviously they want to share their message as well. They're going to say yes, and you've got much more chance of getting them on your event to level up your value in your events. So, okay, right. So we've talked about spinning plates. People are kind of thinking, right, okay, well, how are they thinking? They're thinking, right, it's a bit of a nightmare moving on if you don't do it right. I want to focus on what I do best. It sounds like a lot of spinning plates. There's some tech knowledge that's required. And also the content. So in order to get the content to look best, because there's a lot of poor, you know, I've seen these awful green screen things and like where their hair's like disappearing and there's a cat appearing, and they're frightening. So what I'd love to do now is just kind of end the podcast with some solid tips that people can do right away to go and level up the production of their content, like how it looks, anything you want to share on that?
So, yes, so many things. I might struggle with 3. The first thing would be to level up your event. Your experience starts at the point the person buys a ticket. So you've got to make sure that your ticket buying experience is spot on, and then the work stream that follows is automated for you to make it super simple. But also make sure that you're putting in value on every single email reminder that you send them. So they're already thinking, wow, Jason's really knowledgeable. He really knows his stuff. I'm really excited for the event because I've already watched 17 hours of YouTube stuff that he sent me on the way up to it. That's where your experience starts, the moment they buy a ticket. So capitalize on that on the run up to. What you're then doing is framing your event. You're already saying to them, this is going to be something different. This is not a bog standard chalk and talk.
And guys, that's like walking in the coffee shop where you open the door and it's nice music, nice smell, nice ambience, right? The staff are all smiling. The fridge is stocked with sandwiches and things. That's the feeling. That is what you have to be aware of, that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next up, to level up the experience, I would say get someone to help you. If it's somebody on your team, if it's, I don't know, your mum that's really good at pressing buttons online, get a second pair of hands, or a professional, depending on where your budget's at. Get someone to help you so that they can concentrate on the production and split the roles very distinctly. You are the producer, I am the presenter, so that all you focus on is maximum delivery. So that you stay in your content, you stay connected, and you can interact with people in the moment. So when a question comes in, you can be on it, you can be vibrant, you can be pouring energy through that camera and nothing else.
Great. And one last thing on tips then. If people are listening to this and thinking, right, I'm thinking about doing this event and I'm going to try it and do it myself. I'm going to try and run this Zoom call or webinar or whatever it might be. What are some things they should send out to anyone featuring on their thing or guests to make sure that it all goes smoothly when everyone logs in? Like make sure you don't have, something on in the background or things like that.
So best thing to do is have a dry run with your speakers, because you can send them all the information in the world. You can't actually test what their mic is doing, what their Wi-Fi is like, and what their camera's like unless you actually do a test. So even if it's just jumping on a quick call, I just want to check what you're going to cover in your talk. You get a feel for what their setup's like, and you can give them tips. And be brutal about giving them tips, because you're putting your name on what they're about to do. Next up, send them a guide for how you want it to look. I'd like you to use an external microphone. Here are my recommendations if you don't have one already. We will be recording at this level, so please make sure your camera is suitable and compatible. We won't be using any virtual backgrounds, or we are going to use virtual backgrounds, and here's one that I've made up for you. Please could you make sure that you put it in your background.
Great.
Here's the link to access the event. Tell them when you want them to be there, not when they're on. So if they're due to be on at 5:10, tell them you want them there at 5 o'clock, so that they can settle. You can deal with any issues that might happen in advance. Be really specific about camera angle, lighting and microphone, so that they've got a clean lens, that it's not up their nostrils or down their cleavage. You've not got load of bald head and not much else. Make sure that they are well lit, that it's natural light where possible, that they've not got that weird Grim Reaper look going on where they're silhouetted, that people can really see. So the connection that you lose from moving face to face online is all the micro expressions. So people really struggle to connect human to human when you haven't got those micro expressions. But by making sure you've got really sharp camera quality and that you've got good lighting, brings that back, rescues some of that. And then just by making sure that they've got a good mic that's not rustling on their top.
Lav mics.
They're not waving their hands and tapping the keyboard. Really, really helps in taking it forward and making sure that they are going to deliver the best of themselves, and then they're going to represent you in the best way. Also, don't forget about your delegates. If you're not using a platform that's familiar to everybody, so I'd say if you're not using Zoom, make sure that in your joining instructions you're really specific. Click on this link, this is what you'll see. If you have problems, this is where you find help. Be really obvious, and even if it feels like you're teaching your grand to suck eggs.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are very busy-minded, aren't they? And
yeah,
they
absolutely
need
spell it out.
Absolutely. Okay, so look, lastly then, back in the day, probably 2015, 2016, I remember trying to persuade a ton of construction industry workers that this was the way forward. Like 2014, 2015, I was going, let's do it on Zoom. Let's do it on Zoom had just come out, and Skype, and let's do this meeting. And there was these objections around businesses going, no, it doesn't really work for our business. We can't run events online. Well, gutted, because 2020, everyone's had to do that. So now you can't use that excuse. So my question is, can any business run events online?
I'm yet to find one that can't. And if anyone has a business that they believe that they can't put online, I'd love to know about it in the comments, because I bet I can find a way that I can.
Yeah, so it's exciting to work on that, right?
Yeah. I'm yet to find, you can do everything with the right camera setup, and just thinking about transitioning the face-to-face content into the online world. There is literally nothing you can't do. You can do demos, you can do side-by-side action, you can teach people things, you can get them involved, you can send them away doing homework.
Yep.
There is nothing you can't do in the online. Virtually, you could even teach a swim lesson virtually, because I've seen underwater cameras, underwater speakers, and underwater TVs. You can see people teaching swimming online. There you
go. Wow. So no excuses. And what I'd say lastly is, if you're if you are stuck for creativity and some inspiration, go on YouTube and check out some of the gamers, because although you might not have that gamey look, that is what's possible. They're well ahead of the curve on this. Trust me. They're streaming their screens and their video, and they've got guests, and they've got tickers and lower thirds. Go and look at that and see what's possible. And although you might not have that look of the kind of gamey look, that is what's possible. You can have all your branding behind that. So go and get some inspiration from some gamers, and that will show you what's possible. So lastly, Lorna, thank you for all your time. I keep saying lastly. This is definitely lastly. Where can everyone find you?
The best place to check us out is obviously the website, www.myomyevents.com. We're on Instagram a lot, myomy_events. We've got a YouTube channel, and we have a Facebook group as well. So all the same handles, and we drop clinic stuff into the Facebook group. So need to know anything, find out any answers, you can find it all in the Facebook and YouTube.
Amazing. Well, hopefully you've got a lot of value from this, guys. It's been a jam-packed episode with transitioning your business online. This podcast is all about being timeless, spaceless, being free and able to focus on your most meaningful work. And if that episode doesn't play into those values, I don't know what will. I want to thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out the show tonight. And until then, have a great rest of your day and weekend. And I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.